this is the starting point of getting private lenders engaged, interested, and into the conversation with you. The first thing they're evaluating is, am I going to lose all of my money if I invest in this deal, if I lend on this deal? You address that concern very early on in your teaching, and you show the private lender how they're protected. You immediately elevate your status and your authority. And then when you do that, you start to win. What's up, everybody? Rob Swanson back here with another episode of the Real Estate Mogul Show. So this is the show that directly impacts your path to financial freedom. Every week, I'm going to answer in these Q&A episodes your most pressing questions. And these come from the skills, the knowledge, the experience that I've gained over 25 years in the field, investing in real estate by closing thousands of real estate deals and teaching tens of thousands of students. Now, here's the cool thing. What I love about the format of this show is I get to answer your questions. And the reason that's relevant is on social media, via email replies, and directly in person, I get asked every single week dozens of different questions from both brand new aspiring real estate investors, sometimes that are asking the very basics of how do I get started, or what is a deal, or how should I think about this, that, or the other thing, all the way to very experienced operators, guys and gals that are closing hundreds of deals a year. And they still come to me and say, how do we think about doing this? How should we do that? How should we improve our systems, operations, scale, profitability, expansion? I get asked all of these questions. And this format, the format of this show, allows me to answer the question, take the questions, ask the question, and then answer it for you so that you can pull nuggets of information and life-changing strategies and real-world tactics from the field. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to dive on in and get started. Now, to do that today, I want to answer one of the most pressing things that I get from the younger audience, the people that are just getting started in this business, the people that are shifting from maybe coming out of school or taking that first step into either investing or entrepreneurship or making more money, saying, I've got to do something to get to the next level. And, these are questions that my kids ask. These are questions that adults ask all the time. How do I get started? How do I think about it? And this is what I would tell people all the time. It's the advice I give my own kids. The first thing you have to do is figure out how to get your earned income up. And you've got to simply make more money. And the way you make more money is you deliver more value to the experience or to the thing that you're doing to make money. And you can do that in sales. You can do that in professions that are very specific. You can do that through real estate investing. Now, some people say, I love what I do. I'm trained in this. I have a passion for that. And if you can figure out how to make more money doing that thing, do it. Sometimes people say, I got to do this thing and I need to start making more money. How do I do that? Well, real estate investing is a great path to making more money. Here's the cool part about this. Once you figure out how to make more money, you're going to transition the use of that money into different forms of investing. Real estate investing is one of those things that I encourage people to do, changed my life. I teach people to do. Take your active earned income, the high earned income, and begin to invest it in real estate for the passive results. Now, we're going to talk about the realities of passive income. Many forms of so-called passive income are not truly passive. They would be what I call semi-passive. And that means you've got to do something to still manage the investment. You've got to have your eyes on the ball. your finger on the pulse. You've got to understand what's going on with it, and you still make some decisions along the way. Step one, increase your active income. I tell people this all the time. In making money, there are generalists and there are specialists, and generalists get paid to do the general work. Specialists get paid because they produce a very specific outcome and result within a business, within an industry, within an opportunity, and they get paid more when that result is directly connected to revenue. So if you're thinking about how do you increase your active income, ask yourself, do the skills you have translate to specific knowledge, specific skill, and can that specific skill be used to drive growth, drive revenue, drive sales? Everything else in business comes after a business figures out how to make money. So the way that you make the most money inside of an organization is to connect yourself with specific skill directly to the things that actually make money. So I think that was what was on my brain at the beginning. Increase your active income and figure out how to transfer that active income into passive income along the way. So let's do this. I've got a whole bunch of questions that have come in online over the course of the last week. And so I'm going to jump over to the team here, and I think we've got some questions queued up, don't we?
Yes, sir, we do.
Fantastic. Well, let's just dive in on this. While you ask them, I'll kind of scroll over to my other screen here and stay in tune.
All right, sounds good. So question number 1 for today's Q&A episode is from Kevin. How do I use other people's money to invest in real estate? How do I get private lenders to fund deals?
Okay. Good question. How do I use other people's money to invest in real estate and get private lenders to fund deals? Number one thing you have to understand is that if you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to get a private lender to step up to the plate with you. So the first thing you have to do is increase your level of knowledge, which naturally translates to your level of confidence going up, which naturally translates to the way you communicate the opportunity increasing. So step one is increase your knowledge. Step two is have confidence. And step three is communicate better. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. The minute I come to you, Kevin, and ask you for money to invest in my real estate deals, you know what you're going to do? You're going to take a step back. You're going to cross your arms and you're going to say, what's the catch? Because I came to you asking for something. Fundamentally, here's what you need to do when you're thinking about raising private money as a real estate investor. You need to understand that you are delivering an opportunity to the private lender just as much as they're giving you the opportunity to access the capital to do more real estate deals. There's a win-win relationship here. Now, I'm going to make a distinction between private lenders and hard money lenders. Hard money lenders are in the business of lending. They set the terms, they set the rates, they set the points. They tell you what they'll invest in, how much they'll give you, when they'll do it, when you have to pay them back. They're in the business of lending, and they're there to make a profit. They control the deal. Private money lenders, on the other hand, are not in the business of lending. They are not there because they're saying, I'm a real estate lender, I'm going to go and make a bunch of money lending real estate. Now, they start to think that way as you begin to educate them. But private money lenders are relationship-based. Hard money lenders are transactionally based first. They're in the business to do it. And they're relationship-based as you develop a reputation. Private money lenders are just the opposite. They're relationship-based first, and you are giving them an opportunity to invest their money, secured by real estate, covered by insurance, at a below market value rate and investment. So there's security secured by the asset itself. It's the relationship. Now, with that relationship comes a couple of things. Comes you setting the terms. You're going to create the opportunity for the lender to get involved. So you tell them how you pay, how much you'll pay, how much they'll lend. You're setting all of the terms. With the setting of those terms comes great responsibility. You have to protect your private lenders at all costs. That is the key. You've got to do the things in your business and set up the terms so that they are protected, because they don't know what they don't know. They're trusting you and have a relationship with you. So now let me answer your question specifically. How do I get private lenders to lend to me? The number one thing you do is you educate. You teach people about the opportunity. In contrast to how I started this, which the norm and the free information on the internet says, build a pitch deck, build a portfolio, and go show people how much money you can make them by investing with you. If you pitched that deal to me, I'm going to immediately be skeptical. I'm going to immediately start asking questions, and I'm going to immediately say, what's the catch? As opposed to if you present yourself as an authority and as a teacher and as an educator, you get to teach people about making money and teach people about private lending, this new opportunity, this new thing that they had no idea existed before you started educating them about it. When you frame yourself as the teacher, as the educator, and as the authority, people are going to naturally be attracted to you rather than repelled from you. So the difference in response is when you teach, people will lean in and ask you questions. When you ask, they will step back, cross their arms, and be skeptical. That's a fundamental difference. Now, we can dive deeper into how we take that conversation through to the end and get money, but this is the starting point of getting private lenders engaged, interested, and into the conversation with you. Show up as a teacher, show up as an educator, which means you've got to increase your knowledge and your level of skill first, and then when you do that, you start to win. Private lenders, as they're evaluating you and your deals, they are more interested in a return of their money than they are interested in a return on their money. The first thing they're evaluating is, am I going to lose all of my money if I invest in this deal, if I lend on this deal? You have to understand that first. And when you show up as a teacher, you address that concern very early on in your teaching, and you show the private lender how they're protected, you immediately elevate your status and your authority. That is how you get private money. Let's jump in. What else we got on the docket?
I love it, Rob. All right, question number 2 is from Jason. A little bit of a longer question. Why do you and other gurus offer programs or training courses that are so high priced? For most people, the reason they're reaching out in the first place is because money is tight. Then, after getting on a call, they're excited about the possibilities only to be hit with a hefty price tag. It's like inflating a balloon only to pop it, leaving the customer deflated and discouraged.
Okay. I love it. Well, let's start here. Why do we sell information? Well, I think that there's a couple things. I think that what's known in the information world industry, the free line has moved greatly over the last 10, 15 years. And what I mean by the free line is what you used to have to pay for, and you used to have to pay thousands of dollars for, is now freely available online. It's freely available on social media. It's freely available on YouTube. It's freely available on any social platform. And so, number one, understand that the free line has moved greatly. So your ability to access information is greatly enhanced from when I was getting into this business. There was no free information on the internet. I had to buy a course, a training system. I had to invest in myself and make a change, make a commitment, and do something that was uncomfortable to begin with. So I'm going to start it by saying that there's a tremendous amount of free content available on the internet, including this podcast that we're on right now. The second thing is we offer a free, very free, like no money free, 100 offer challenge where we take people through a 5-day training system and teach them how to find opportunities, evaluate opportunities, make offers on opportunities, capture inbound leads, and actually take prospects all the way to the opportunity dashboard where a deal, an offer has been accepted and you're in the game. And we do that on a regular basis, absolutely free. It's called the 100 offer challenge. I literally teach people step by step by step how to go from start to success. And it's a repeatable process. See, real estate investing is not complex. Real estate investing has some very repeatable steps that you can take. What gets complex is that there are so many different ways you can go about investing in real estate that many people get confused by chasing rabbit trails because they are exposed to a particular strategy today, and then tomorrow they're exposed to a different strategy. And then they go to YouTube and they start searching for different opportunities, and they're like not sure what direction to go. And that's the difference between what is freely available online and what is sort of created as systems or put together in packages on people's paid training courses. What we try to do when we offer paid courses is we take all of the freely available information and we try to give you context. And we try to say, here's why you are going to do this step, and then this step, and then this step, because you're investing in very clear information and content to take you from where you are to the result that you desire. Now, you might be able to find this online, but you're going to find it from this video here and that video there and some information over there and a blog post over here and a social media post there. And you're going to have to try to piece it all together, and you're going to have to say to yourself, is this right? What we do when we sell training systems is we shortcut everything for you. We say, here's the outcome that you desire, if this is the outcome that you desire, and if you know, like, and trust what I have been sharing along the way, here's the door you can walk into and the process you can follow to get that result. That's kind of context on the information education business. So let's get back to the question, why do we do this in the first place? And why do we do it when money is tight? This goes back to the question I answered a few minutes ago. The first thing you need to invest in is knowledge. And in order to invest in knowledge, you need to get your income up so that you have the money to invest in knowledge. So you need to ask yourself, what can I do today? What can I do to increase my income? Okay, now I'm going to tell you what I told my 15-year-old son years ago when he said, how do I make more money, Dad? How do I do something? Mow lawns, wash windows, do things that are very low cost, a lower knowledge or a lower barrier of entry, but are highly paid. Okay, you can make a lot of money washing windows. And that increases your active income, which allows you then to invest in the steps and the training systems that are very specific to certain outcomes and results. So you've got to say to yourself, how do I, number one, make more money? And then how do I invest that money to increase my knowledge and my skills to make more money in other ways? And so Number one, we offer a lot of free content that people can go through. And then when you're ready to jump in, because you've said, I like the free content was helpful, it was valuable, I did the work and I got a result. When you say to yourself, I trust this person, I like this person, I like their teaching style, I connect with how they think about the world, I'm on board with their approach to life and living, then you can say, I'm ready to invest in myself in one of their training programs so that I can have closer proximity, so that I can have more step-by-step instruction, so that I can have the coaching and the encouragement to adjust and pivot when I run into roadblocks, because you will run into roadblocks. Things will not always work out. Things will be hard. You know, there's the saying that goes something like, you know, the best things, the things in the world that are worth the most take the most effort to achieve. And, you know, that's why it's not easy to produce the lifestyle, the results that people glamorize out in social media, but it is possible to get there. The problem is you see the Ferrari and you see the airplane and you see the vacations and you see the beaches and you see the lifestyle. What you didn't see was the blood, pain, sweat, tears, bruised knees, bloodied up knuckles, all of the challenges that it took to get there. The first challenge is to figure out how to increase your income so that you have the money to invest in yourself first, to level up your skill. Knowledge and effort is the equation. Learn more and then put in the hard work that results in the outcomes that you want it to result in time and time and time again. So hopefully I've answered some of that question. From our perspective, it's a business. We put a lot of time, energy, and effort into creating things that help people. And if you like me, if you like us, if you connect with how I see the world and how I approach the world and how I approach making money and the lifestyle that I live, if you like that, then investing closer with me is a no-brainer. For me, it's a business. The closer you get, the more expensive it becomes, which is a weeding out process. I can't work with knuckleheads. I don't want to work with knuckleheads. And so non-knuckleheads will not make the investment it takes to get closer, to create proximity. And it's that closeness and that proximity where the daily magic happens, where you have connection to people that you can run something by, that you can check in with, that you can say, hey, am I thinking about this right? As education goes from a free course to an online paid training system to coaching to masterminds, as the price tag goes up, generally the access and the proximity and connection to the guru, as you speak, or to the educator, to the person who has had the experiences you want to have, also goes up. And that's why we do it. I like to teach people. If you were to ask my wife, she would tell you that one of my superpowers is teaching. I like to make complex things simple, and I like to encourage people to do that. You want to know one of the biggest challenges that coaches like myself, educators like myself have? We often want the success for our students more than the student wants the success for themselves. And that drives me crazy, because I know that if they put in this work for this season, hustle is not the destination, it's the journey. You've got to hustle through the journey to get to the destination, where hustle becomes a word that doesn't have to enter your vocabulary anymore. And so I often want the success of my student more than they do. And that's a crazy thing to think about. but it's also why coaches put access price tags onto their training program. So, Jason, I hope that makes sense. You know what I'll do? I'll have my team personally reach back out to you and make sure that you have the link to join our next 100% free 100 offer challenge. All right, what else we got?
Okay. Next question from John. Where I live sucks for investing because it's so expensive. What should I do?
Interesting. Okay. Where I live sucks for investing because it's so expensive. What should I do? Very, very wide open question. But here's what I tell you to do. This is what I tell my kids to do. This is what I have told my kids to do. This is what I've told thousands of real estate investors for well over a decade, probably over a decade and a half now. Live where you want to live and invest where it makes dollars and cents. So disconnect your living location, your geography where you want to live from where you invest, where it makes the most dollars and cents to invest. Disconnect those two things. You do not need to live within 3 miles of where you invest or within 20 miles of where you invest. In fact, I would tell most people they're better off investing somewhere halfway across the country where they can't get in their car and drive over to something and waste their time while feeling busy, while feeling productive, but wasting your time because, you know what? It'll only take me an hour to drive over there and I can check this thing out. Well, you drive over there, you check it out, and you know what? Sure enough, that is a vacant house and the grass is tall. And congratulations, you just wasted 2.5 hours of your time confirming that it is in fact vacant and the grass is tall. And what did you get out of doing that? You got nothing. So I tell people you're better off investing outside of where you live, where it is literally not an option for you to get in your car and drive over there. Because when it is not an option, you figure out efficiency. You will figure out the right way to do things, the right way to evaluate deals, the right way to filter through your opportunities and land on things that actually matter. Now, let me answer then how you can kind of piece some of these things together. Here we go. So my team just finished a couple of reports, and we've got 2 reports here that are freely available, and you can download them. The first report is the 2025 Top Zip Codes Report. This is the 150 top zip codes where investors are making the most money in the country. Okay? Freely available right in the description of this video. Go grab your copy. And the second one is this. So the first thing is I want you to think about not being the pioneer. You don't have to recreate the wheel and you don't have to come up with a magic bullet, okay? What you need to do is you need to follow where other real estate investors are making money. You need to know where other real estate investors are making money. Now, specifically, John, to your question, if where you live sucks because it's too expensive, then you can go through this 150 city and zip code report, and you can say, well, what is a cheaper location? Where does the dollars and cents, where does the math work out? Where can I invest where it can be profitable for me? And so one of the things I tell people is this. Don't hear me wrong. Don't hear me that the only opportunity is somewhere else, okay? Every city has its opportunities. The question is, how much does it cost you in marketing to find the opportunity, and how much time does it take you before that opportunity shows up? So in certain markets, your costs go up and your timeline extends. In other markets, your cost per deal goes down and your timeline accelerates. What you're looking for is the magic meeting of a lower cost and an accelerated timeline. What you typically give up is profit per deal. So the more expensive the marketing is, the cost per deal, and the longer it takes to get that deal, generally the more profitable that deal is. Contrast that with the less cost per deal and a more accelerated timeline. Generally, your price or your profit per deal is a little bit lower. And so there's always a trade-off of how fast and how much cost versus profit. That's one thing that you have to do. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at this 150 zip code report, and you're going to pick where you might want to be interested in investing. Then you're going to look at this second report. And the second report is the top 50 cities vacant house tracker for 2025. And what my team does is we publish this report, we update this report regularly, and we say, where is the observable distress? Where is the opportunity? Because you've got to have demand and supply. So the first report shows you where the demand is, meaning where investors are already making money. That's where opportunity is. But then inside of those opportunities, you've got to say, how much supply is there? Is there observable distress? Is there opportunity that I can go find quickly? And so you use the second report to sort of triangulate in on the right market. And so, John, that's how I would tell you to approach this. Is the thing I want you to do is I want you to go and I want you to download these two reports. These are going to show you where investors are making the most money and where the distressed inventory is the greatest. You match these two things up, and you are going to know exactly where you can go invest virtually anywhere in the country. It's a no-brainer. Drop below and grab your copy right now. Absolute no-brainer. All right, let's jump on to the next thing. Trevor, what do we got?
All right. We have this question from Natalie. Once I get an offer under contract, do I wait until I have the property assigned before I take docs to escrow? Or do I take my contract of purchase as soon as I get it? And then she has a follow-up. Also, when I open escrow, am I paying EMD out of pocket, or am I waiting to pay EMD with the deposit I get from the buyer's assignment?
So let me just clarify the question. EMD is earnest money deposit. So when you make an offer on real estate, you're going to make an earnest money deposit. That's the thing that you as the buyer, the offerer on a real estate contract is putting up in good faith to say that you have the intent and the capacity to move forward with the purchase transaction. So EMD in the question is earnest money deposit. Let's back up and tackle this question kind of step by step. Once I get an offer into contract, do I wait until I have the property assigned before I take it and open escrow? Meaning, before I submit my purchase contract, my signed agreement to the title company or to the escrow office or to the attorney, depending on the state that you're in, when do I do that? Here's what I tell people to do. I tell people to make your offer and get the property under contract. And then follow the timeline of that agreement to do your due diligence, okay? And what your due diligence is essentially you verifying that the information you got from the seller that you did in your research is in fact true. The condition of the property is true. The location is accurate. The things that you want to evaluate, you want to determine, have I made an offer at a price that works based on what we are actually dealing with? Okay, so while you're doing your due diligence, you're going through the process of setting yourself up to close, okay? Here's the thing I want you to think about. I want you to start thinking about, if this is a good enough deal, how are you going to close it? How are you going to not just leave the seller hanging if you're not ready to close, but how are you going to step up and be able to close? This is a fundamental shift for some newer real estate investors, especially guys and gals that are learning the game of wholesaling. And wholesaling is a fantastic real estate strategy, and it serves a purpose. You know, despite it getting hammered by legislation and people not understanding the role of a real estate wholesaler has a very specific purpose in the market, and that is to solve the problem of sellers that have likely tried to solve their problem through retail means. They've tried to list the house, but the real estate agent said, we can list the house if you spend $25,000 to fix these series of repairs. We can list the house, but you owe too much, and so you're going to owe us at closing $8,000, $10,000, $25,000. We can list the house, but, and there's a whole bunch of reasons why taking a distressed house or a distressed situation that needs a fast solution or it needs a cash solution, taking that to the retail market doesn't often work. And so real estate agents also are generally not advertising and marketing for those complex, distressed situations. They're looking for the retail easy sale where everybody's going to earn their commissions and things are going to go through smoothly and easily. Real estate investors are looking for the complex. We're looking for the challenge. We're looking for the distress. We're looking for the problem and the pain so that we can deliver a solution that helps somebody out of a bad situation. So I say all that to say, when you make an offer and get a property accepted, the first thing you want to do is have a due diligence timeline and verify all of the things during your due diligence to determine, are you comfortable closing? And then I want you to do two things. Start working on getting the funding to close or sell the contract to a real estate investor that can step in and close. But make sure that you're doing the due diligence and your offer-making process in such a way that you're actually getting deals that are good, right? And what I mean by deals that are good are, we are in the business of solving problems, but we're also in the business to make a profit. And so it has to be a win-win. It has to solve a seller's problem while being profitable for the ultimate end investor. And so that's what I would tell you to do. Make sure that your numbers work first. As soon as you know that your numbers work and you are confident that either you can close or you can go find or have a buyer to close, meaning you've sold your contract, I want you to open escrow as soon as possible, because sometimes opening escrow is the thing that will tell you, oh, we have this lien or we have this judgment or we have this thing that we have to deal with. And, that's another layer of your due diligence. So you want to make sure that the numbers work first, and then you want to go and open escrow as quickly as possible to make sure that the title part of your due diligence is actually going to work. I don't tell you that you have to wait until you've assigned it to a buyer. I would tell you to move it forward sooner versus later, after you've verified that your numbers work. Because then, if your numbers work, then you can get the money to close. If a good deal exists, you can find the money. You might have to hustle a little bit, you might have to work a little bit, but you can find the money to close and you can take it across the finish line. If you end up selling the contract instead of closing it on yourself, that's fine as well too. So you get to make that decision. But that's when I would take it to the title company. The second thing I would tell you to do is build a relationship with your title company, because they can often do a quick search, an O&E report, something that doesn't cost them a lot of money, but it can give you the fast layer of due diligence to say, are we going to have title or lien problems based on what the seller has shared with me, can I do a quick level of due diligence? You may not have to open escrow, but you may submit your paperwork to the title company if you have a relationship and have them do a quick search to just give you some insight into any potential title issues. Final thing is, are you going to submit your earnest money deposit? And, again, this goes back to a couple of things. When you make offers on real estate, there are two things that I want you to consider. I want you to consider your intent and your capacity in the offer-making process. What is your intent? Is your intent to close? If you're making an offer to buy real estate, your intent should be to close. And the second thing I want you to think about is capacity, your capacity to close. Do you have the funding available? And if you don't have the funding available, here's what I tell you to do. Disclose properly your capacity. That means you maybe don't make an all-cash offer if you don't have all cash. You make an offer that is contingent on financing. Now what you've done is you've made an offer that is contingent on financing. You can move the due diligence process forward. Your intent is clean. Your intent is to close. Your capacity is properly disclosed. You're not claiming all cash if you don't have cash. You're claiming that is subject to you getting financing. So now you have the process and the time to go and put the financing together. While you're putting the financing together, that could be cash, could be private money, it could be a hard money lender, it could be your buddy, or it could be that you're selling the contract to another local real estate investor that does have the capacity to close. When you go into the offer process, I want you to just be thinking about the earnest money deposit and your intent and capacity. Earnest money deposit is the thing that then consummates the agreement, okay? The earnest money deposit is the thing that binds the agreement. Without it, you don't have a valid agreement. So I'm no lawyer. I just claim to be smarter than some of them. And I'm going to say this. When it comes to earnest money and when it comes to contract law, a real estate contract is what's known as a unilateral contract. And that means the seller unilaterally is obligated to sell, but you are not obligated to buy. Okay? And so if you were to break the contract, the consequences of you breaking the contract comes in generally two forms. Number one, liquidated damages, and number two, specific performance. Liquidated damages is your earnest money. The amount of money you put up as earnest money is what the seller would get if you were to break the terms of the agreement and not close. Now, again, I say unilateral agreement because it is the seller's obligation to sell so long as you follow the terms of the agreement. It is not your obligation to buy. So if you properly disclose, if your intent is to close and your disclosure around funding and anything else that are terms of your agreement, if your disclosures are correct, then your earnest money is generally set up, or your liability in the agreement is set up around your earnest money. And so your earnest money is the liquidated damages. It's what the seller will get if you don't close. And if all of your remedies for cancellation of that agreement are expired. If you no longer can get out of the agreement but can't close for some reason, let's say your funding doesn't come through, let's say something happens, the liquidated damages means the seller gets your earnest money. Without the liquidated damage, or without the earnest money deposit in place, the seller does not have the obligation to sell. And so if you have a great deal, it is in your best interest to get that earnest money deposit submitted as soon as possible, because that's what binds the agreement. If you don't bind the agreement, you are at risk of the seller not following through or accepting another agreement from someone else, that buyer binds the agreement, and now you're out. So if you've bound the agreement, the seller is unilaterally obligated to sell. If you don't bind the agreement, they are not, and you are at risk. So don't put yourself at risk. Get the earnest money in as soon as you can. I'm going to tell you this. Outside of if I buy bank-owned properties, which are generally $500 to $1,000 to $2,000 earnest money, directly to a bank through generally a real estate agent online, a bank-owned REO, real estate-owned property. I have not made an earnest money deposit direct to a seller in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of transactions, more than $10 in probably a decade. So your amount of earnest money can be pretty low. Now, there are certain situations, i.e. state-specific, where the legislation, the laws of the land say that by contract law to bind a contract, there is a certain amount of earnest money required. And off the top of my head, I can think of generally I've seen that to be around $100. So, and I have not been doing business in a state that has that requirement. So my $10 has been perfectly fine because there's been no dollar amount limitation to bind with earnest money. Depending on where you live and invest, you might ask your local title company, is there a minimum earnest money deposit requirement to bind a purchase agreement? Ask that question. You'll look pretty smart. So hopefully that answered that question in a lot more detail than probably the question asker wanted.
Catherine asks, how do you get someone in a house with bad credit and fixed income?
How do you get someone in a house with bad credit and fixed income? I generally open the front door.
All right, is that it?
I hope you laughed. Let me try to answer this. I don't know the full context of the question because the question is pretty generic. How do you get someone in a house? I assume what that means is how do I rent to them or how do I sell to them? Well, how do I rent to them? If they have bad credit, well, you can decide to accept the tenant that has bad credit. You are the investor. It's your option. If you're trying to sell to someone with bad credit and you're trying to sell through retail financing, that could be a challenge. They may or may not have the capacity to go out and get a retail loan. That doesn't mean that you can't sell to them owner financing and become the bank yourself and create your own set of terms around what you decide to do. So there's two things that I think that this question then begs. What should your terms be if you were going to sell to someone with bad credit? And maybe even before that, should you sell to someone with bad credit? Here's a question that I ask all the time. If you were a real estate investor and you bought a property, you fixed it up, and you were going to sell it owner financing, and a buyer came to you and they had recently filed bankruptcy, okay? Or even a tenant. A tenant comes to you and they had recently filed bankruptcy, so their credit score is in the crapper. It's not good. They've got really bad credit. They recently filed bankruptcy. The bankruptcy's been discharged. They're out. Would you sell and or rent to that person? What I hear in my head right now is Jeopardy music. I'm not sure if that's what you hear, but I'm letting you marinate on that question for a moment and think about the answer. And I'm going to give you the answer. Yes, I would. And I'll tell you why I would. I would rent to them and or I would potentially sell to them with some caveats. Okay, I'm going to give you the caveats in a moment. There's two parts to this I said we were going to talk about. the terms and the decision to rent or sell to them, and then the terms if the decision is yes. So the decision for me, someone with bad credit, recently discharged out of bankruptcy, would be, yeah, I would do that all day long because all of their debts have been recently wiped out. They no longer have their debts. And so now they have a significantly greater portion of their income to go into housing. And a lot of times the thing that stressed people out the most that takes them to a financially bad situation and forces them to file bankruptcy is all of their bad decisions around consumer debt and around consumption added to the debt and the monthly payments and the monthly payments and the monthly payments, and they go up and they go up and they go up. And then all of a sudden they're like, I got all these obligations and I can't afford rent. I can't afford my house payment. I can't afford. And so it's a lot of bad consumer debt decisions that leads people to this stress around their housing. And so they file bankruptcy, they clean it all up, they get a fresh push the button reset. And you know what they are 100% committed not to have happen again? They're committed to not have their housing at risk. So you know what the first bill they pay every month is? Their rent or their mortgage. Because they don't want the stress of thinking that they're going to be out on the streets again. And so I would and have many times rented or sold to someone recently filed bankruptcy where the bankruptcy was discharged and they have a clean slate. Now, let's say that it's not bankruptcy. Let's say that it's bad credit just because they're always behind on their bills. Then you have to make the decision, is this somebody I want to rent to or sell to? I probably would not sell to them unless there's a significant down payment and I can see that it's just they have the money, they're just really bad at personal finance, and they just make payments late all the time. That can be a reality sometimes. And I may or may not rent to them because again, for the same reasons. I would want to evaluate why is their credit bad? And if it's bad because of late payments, is it bad because of late payments because they don't have the money, or is it bad because of late payments because they don't have personal finance management skills? And so that's how I would think about it. On the terms side, if I'm going to rent to someone with bad credit, assuming that I've determined that it's either a personal finance and management issue, or they've filed bankruptcy and they're discharged and they've got plenty of money to put towards housing, I would rent to them, and I might take a month or two deposit, and I might see if I can front load that. Now there's different laws in different states that you have to conform to, but I would try to offset my risk and increase their commitment to protecting their investment, which is housing. And on a owner finance deal, selling to somebody with bad credit, I would sell with a higher down payment. I would just require that they have more cash to put in the deal up front if their credit is poor. The lower down payment you take, the more likelihood that you're going to experience a default. And what I have found is that somewhere in that 10%, somewhere north of 10%, if someone puts 10% or more down on an owner finance deal, the default rate drops exponentially. Below 10%, the default rate is high. 10%, the default rate starts to go down. You hit 20% down, and the default rate plummets. So between that 10 and 20% down payment, you see the default rate on an owner finance deal dramatically reduce. So I would be thinking about it from that perspective. Now, someone on fixed income, again, it comes back to, can they afford it? So there's nothing you can do if someone can't afford it. That's the reality. They have to be able to afford it. And if they can't, It is what it is. The bad credit thing, you can help them fix. You can help them solve for the bad credit depending on the situation. The fixed income, if they can't afford it, not much you can do. All right, let's jump to the next one.
Jim started his off very politely. Good afternoon. How do you find true, genuine, motivated sellers in a time and cost-effective manner?
Yeah, cool, Jim. Thanks for the question. How do you find true, genuine, motivated sellers in a time and cost-effective manner? So I'm going to start this by saying this is one of my wheelhouse things. Okay, I've been doing lead generation for real estate investment for over 20 years. And, there's been a lot of strategies, a lot of tactics, a lot of tools, a lot of approaches to lead generation that have come and gone over the years. The foundational thing that has always worked, that I have always gone back to because it's repeatable, it's predictable, it's measurable, and frankly, it works, is direct mail. And so, but regardless of the strategy, whether it's direct mail, whether it's online lead generation, whether it's pay-per lead, whether it's cold calling, whether it's bandit signs out on the street, whether it's radio, TV, billboards, fill in the blank. The thing that you want to do to find true, genuine, motivated sellers in a time and cost-effective manner is build a great list to start. Okay, let's talk about this. And I'm gonna give you a shameless plug. If you want to find true, genuine, motivated seller leads as fast as possible in a time and cost-efficient manner, you need to download the Response Rate Maximizer report that's just below this video. So how do you do it? The Response Rate Maximizer is this. It says we're going to find one seller, one type of seller that has one type of problem that we can offer one type of solution to in our marketing message. Okay, so we're going to get to this thing here. One seller, an audience of people that have one problem. Here's where people make their mistakes. They build a big watered down list. Okay, they build a list of sellers, of prospects, and they say, you know what, I'm going to find sellers that live out of state, and I'm going to find sellers with high equity, and I'm going to find sellers that have a vacant house, and I'm going to find tired landlords, and I'm going to find zombie properties, and I'm going to find pre-foreclosures, and I'm going to do all of these things, and I'm going to put them all into one big bucket of a list. And then I'm going to send out my direct mail, because if I get a really big bucket, my direct mail costs go down. And so I build this big bucket, and I get cheaper costs per lead. I get cheaper costs per mailer or cheaper costs per record. And you know what you're going to do? You're going to drive through the roof your cost per lead. So you might build a list, and you might do your marketing cheaper, but the response rate is going to plummet. And so the number one key to doing this is to drive up your response rate, which is why the Response Rate Maximizer report that's just below this video will walk you through the process. Build your list. So instead of this big bucket of all of these different types of problems that end up resulting in a watered down message and low response, what you do is you say, well, I'm gonna create a bucket of the sellers that live out of state over here. And I'm going to build a bucket of the sellers that have a vacant house over here. And I'm going to build a bucket of the zombie properties over there. And you're going to have 3 smaller buckets. And I'm going to have pre-foreclosures over here. 4 small buckets. And I'm going to have tired landlords over here. 5 small buckets. And you're going to send a message that is very specific to that particular problem. Instead of a big audience with a watered down message, even though you get lower costs per mail when you send the whole big thing, you water down the message. We buy houses. We'll buy your unwanted house. Well, the landlord that has a tenant that's just moved out and trashed the place, the tired landlord that's been doing it for 25 years and they're kind of sick of dealing with it, has a different thought process than somebody facing a pre-foreclosure situation where they're beginning to get behind further and further on their home mortgage. And so when you say, we'll buy your unwanted house, the pre-foreclosure person says, well, it's not an unwanted house. I want my house. The tired landlord says, well, it may not be an unwanted house. I want the house. It's just costing me too much money to keep right now. So your messaging gets watered down and your response rates go through the floor. And so by breaking down the 5 smaller lists, you end up with 5 unique messages to each of those problems. We call this the response rate maximizer. This is one type of seller with one type of problem, and then one very specific message and call to action that gets them to raise their hand and say, you just spoke to me. Yes, I want the solution you're promising to provide. And so they raise their hand, they call the number, they text the number, they go to the website, they fill in the form, they become a lead inside of your system. So to find true, genuine, motivated sellers, and this is the key, in a time and cost-effective manner, build smaller, very targeted lists of audience with very specific problems and have a solution, a message in your marketing that specifically upstream solves that person's problem. Now, we do this in FreedomSoft with our Mail Now direct mail system. And we have very specific and unique sequences built out for all of the different types of audience types, the problems that those audiences face, and templated solutions in the marketing messaging that specifically speak to the way that seller is thinking, the problem they're experiencing, the pain they feel, and then we give them a very specific solution. Now, in most traditional mail house and CRM scenarios, it's very complex to manage that many different lists with that many different templates and that many different audiences and all of the stuff. Inside of the FreedomSoft Mail Now system, that becomes very easy. You build your list, you apply the sequence to it, all of the templates are automatically pulled in, and you can click send mail, and the whole process starts. That's how you do it. The other thing I would tell you to think about, Jim, is that you have to understand that there are, sellers kind of live in 3 buckets for us as real estate investors. I'm not interested in selling, I'm interested in selling, and I'm motivated to sell. And so the not interested in selling person is not going to respond to your marketing, or if they do, it's going to be very clear, very quick that they're not interested in selling to you. They might be interested in selling at full retail, but they're not interested in selling to you. And so a not interested seller means they're not going to sell to you. An interested seller means I am interested in selling. I want to sell. I maybe will sell to you, or I maybe will sell to someone else. I am interested in selling. The level of problem they're trying to solve, the level of pain they are feeling, is what will move them from interested seller to motivated seller. Someone becomes motivated to eliminate a problem and make the pain stop. They become motivated. They want this thing to be done. And so a motivated seller, if we go back upstream, starts with building a great list, starts with identifying the problem that all of the prospects on that list have in common, and then speaking a message and a solution directly to that audience. That's the response rate maximizer at a very high level. What I would love you to do is download your copy just below this video, because when you start to put these things in place, your response rates go up, which is the number one measure of a marketing campaign is response rate. Your costs go down, and your timeline compresses, you get deals faster. The response rate maximizer is designed to help you get more leads cheaper and faster. That's the key to this whole thing. Let's jump to the next one.
Alrighty. Last question to round today's episode out. I live in a county that is more expensive than any example you used, I'm assuming in previous content they've watched, to calculate remodeling costs. How do I find the cost to remodel in my county? John.
Nice. Okay. Good question. And really fairly simple and short answer on this one. I'm assuming, John, that you don't have construction experience, estimating experience. And so you're looking for a tool that can help you get into the ballpark, into the realm of close when it comes to estimating repairs. And so the easy button on this is inside of the FreedomSoft software, we have a repair cost estimator, and it is designed for people that don't have extensive construction experience, don't have remodeling, rehab experience. You're not living at Home Depot and Lowe's, so you don't know all of these things, but you're trying to get to a reasonable estimate of repair costs. And in the FreedomSoft repair cost estimator, we tell you to think about starting from a couple of conditions, right? The condition of the house dictates oftentimes the cost of the repair. So if the condition of the house is livable and clean, livable and needs work, and a total beater, you can kind of guesstimate, well, it's livable and it's clean, but we're still going to remodel it. It's livable, but it definitely needs work. That's a higher level of repair cost. It's a lower condition. And then the total beater is the worst condition. It needs a full rehab. So we start by understanding that condition matters. So we got to guesstimate the general condition of the property very scientifically with those three categories. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say, let's apply our local housing market adjustment to the repair cost estimator, because labor costs, materials costs, equipment costs vary state to state, county to county, city to city. And so in the FreedomSoft Repair Cost Estimator, you get to go in and you get to enter, what is the house today? What is the house when we're done, meaning bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage totals, finished square footage. Tell us the basics of the house. Tell us what is it going to be when you're done. Are you adding a few hundred square feet from unfinished to finished? Are you adding a bathroom? Are you adding a bedroom? Are you doing something between where you are today and the finished rehab? And then adjust for the local housing market. Pick your state, pick your city, and click Estimate Repairs. The adjustment gets made automatically for you based on the local housing market conditions. And so, John, that's the easy button. When it comes to the fact that I talk about maybe low price cash flowing markets, and you're saying, hey, I live in a higher price, or I live in a different market that's more expensive, I do different types of rehabs. Well, you can use the FreedomSoft Repair Cost Estimator to estimate the repair costs for any house in the country, and you can do it based on two things. A rental grade rehab, if you're just buying a house to fix it up and rent it out, or a retail, a fix and flip grade rehab, where you're going to try to fix it up to the nines, the top of the market, and flip it to a new homeowner with a new loan. Different level of rehab. A rental grade rehab is lower than a fix and flip grade rehab or a remodel. And so the repair cost estimator estimates both for you, so then you get to pick the exit strategy that you want to apply. So, John, great question. All right, guys. So that's a wrap on this one. This is Rob Swanson for the Real Estate Mogul Show, and this has been another segment of our Q&A sessions. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to get engaged. I want you to ask me your questions. You can always shoot me an email to robswanson@freedomsoft.com, and myself and my team will go through those questions on a regular basis, and we'll do just this. We'll drop them up onto the screen, and usually my team curates this information and then throws it in front of me live, so I don't have a lot of time to think about it, and that gets you my best answer, because I'm put here in front of the camera and say, pull from your experience. Talk about this stuff. How do you think about this stuff? And do it in a very transparent manner. Like, if you were literally working real estate investing in my office, what would it be like to interact with me? That's what you're going to get out of these shows. So shoot me an email, robswanson@freedomsoft.com, and I will do my best to answer your questions. That's a wrap for this one. We'll see you in the next one.